Anyone who's been around a toddler knows the scene, right? The sudden, earth-shattering meltdown, all because a crayon snapped or you gave them the blue cup instead of the red one. Yep, temper tantrums. They're pretty much a rite of passage in early childhood, and they can leave parents feeling totally overwhelmed. But what if those outbursts aren't just random noise? What if they're actually trying to tell us something really important about a child's future? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into today.
And that brings us to the big question, the one that really frames this whole conversation. Are all temper tantrums created equal? I mean, is a kid who chucks a toy across the room sending the same signal as a kid who, in a moment of frustration, hits their own head? We've kind of tended to lump them all into one big tantrum bucket, but some really interesting research says we need to look much, much closer.
Okay, but before we dive in, let's just get one thing straight. Tantrums are super, super normal. I mean, look at this number. At their absolute peak, somewhere between 30 and 36 months old, a whopping 91% of kids are having them. So if you're in the thick of it right now, you are so not alone. It's basically a universal experience. The real question isn't that they happen, but how they happen.
So to really get what's going on inside one of these meltdowns, we've got to turn to the science. We're going to look at a really important investigation that decodes these outbursts, and it reveals some key patterns that can help us support our kids long before little struggles turn into big ones.
The study we're diving into is a big one. Researchers followed almost 300 kids all the way from their preschool years deep into their teens. And because they tracked them for so long, they could actually connect specific tantrum behaviors from when they were little to mental health outcomes years and years down the road. So this isn't just a quick snapshot, it's more like a detailed map of how kids develop over time. And here's the first huge discovery they made. When the scientists looked at all the different ways kids tantrum, it wasn't just one big chaotic mess. Nope. The behaviors actually split, very clearly, into two different groups. They found two totally distinct phases of aggression hiding inside a meltdown.
And here's how it breaks down. On one side, you've got aggression pointed outward. This is the classic stuff we think of: throwing things, hitting, spitting, biting other people. Then, on the other side, you have aggression that's pointed inward, hitting or biting themselves or even banging their head. The researchers found these are two separate things, even though, they can sometimes happen together.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. The study found that, both types of aggression were connected to some challenges in preschool. No big surprise there. But when they looked further down the line, into adolescence, one of these types stood out as a much, much more powerful predictor of future problems.
And this brings us right to the core finding, the big red flag that the research uncovered. It's a behavior that isn't just a phase a kid will grow out of, but a real signal that a child might need some extra help learning a really critical life skill.
And there it is, straight from the study itself. Those tantrums that included aggression toward the self, the hitting themselves, the head banging, those were the ones that were way more predictive of later mental health issues. The outward stuff, on its own, wasn't nearly as strong a signal. But this inward-directed anger, that was a clear and consistent warning sign.
But wait, it gets even more specific. The single biggest red flag of them all was the combination of the two. The preschoolers who showed high levels of both outward aggression and self-aggression, well, they were the ones at the highest risk for things like depression and oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD, later on. That's a condition with a real pattern of anger and defiance. So it's that toxic mix of both that really signals a kid is struggling.
Okay, this is super important, so let's all just take a breath here. Hearing this can sound pretty scary, but this is not a life sentence. It's not some kind of definitive diagnosis. What these findings really are is an early warning system. They're a sign that a child is having a really hard time with a fundamental life skill that they just need help learning.
So let's connect the dots. We need to go from just looking at the behavior to understanding the skill that's missing. We have to get to the why behind the meltdown. And that why is all about something called emotional regulation.
So what even is emotional regulation? Honestly, it's just the ability to manage what's going on inside you. It's how we deal with frustration without just exploding. It's how we calm ourselves down when we're upset. It's about responding to challenges in a way that actually helps us instead of hurts us. And for little kids, this skill is not built in. It has to be learned. A severe tantrum is just a sign that that learning process is a little off track.
So how do they learn it? Well, there's this great framework called the tripartite model. First, kids learn by modeling. They're watching you and how you handle your big feelings. Second, they learn from how you respond to them. Do you coach them through their emotions, or do you kind of dismiss them? And third, they just soak up the emotional climate of the home. Does it feel like a safe place to have feelings?
These three things are the absolute building blocks.
And all of this, the modeling, the coaching, the climate, it all comes together in what we call parenting styles. You can think of them as different toolkits we use, whether we know it or not, to teach our kids these really essential skills. Let's look at 3 of the main ones.
First up is the authoritarian style. You probably know this one as the my way or the highway approach. It's all about high demands, strict rules, but very little warmth or responsiveness to a child's feelings. Obedience is the name of the game. End of story.
Then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you've got the permissive style. This is low demands but high responsiveness. So very few rules, not a lot of expectations. And while it can feel really loving, that lack of structure can actually leave kids feeling kinda lost and unable to manage their own impulses.
And then we have what's often called the sweet spot, the authoritative style. This is the best of both worlds. It combines high demands, so clear rules and expectations, with high responsiveness. These parents are warm, they listen, and they actually explain the why behind the rules. They give kids structure, but they also give them a voice.
Let's put these two side by side, because this is where you can really see the difference. The authoritarian parent's go-to phrase is, "because I said so." It shuts down the conversation and teaches the kid that their feelings don't matter. But the authoritative parent says, "let's talk about why." That opens things up. It validates the child's feeling while still holding the line. And that's how you actively teach emotional regulation.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's boil it all down. What are the big things to walk away with? First, remember, most tantrums are totally normal. It's part of being a little kid. Second, pay close attention if you see self-aggression, especially if it's mixed with outward aggression. Third, and this is the most important one, see these behaviors not as a flaw, but as a flare going up, a call for help. And finally, the research is really clear on this. An authoritative approach, that beautiful balance of firm boundaries and warm communication, is the most powerful tool you have to help them build that skill.
So I'll leave you with this. We usually see a tantrum as a behavior problem that we need to stop. But what if we changed our whole perspective? What if we saw it as a message that we need to decode? How can we learn to listen to what a tantrum is truly saying about a child's inner world, about the skills they're struggling with, and the needs that just aren't being met? Answering that question, that could change everything.